Now we continue with the developments in the interwar period. Developments in the interwar period. Remember, we started with the first one, that is the Versailles Peace Conference that took place in France in 1919. Now, this time around, we'll be looking at the League of Nations. The League of Nations as one of the events also that took place in the interwar period. On the formation of the League of Nations, so this one, it was formed on 10th June 1920, and it was formed in Geneva, that is Switzerland. And why Switzerland was chosen? The reason was that it was a neutral country which did not take place in the First World War. So it was neutral, so that's why they thought to choose Switzerland for the formation of the League of Nations. It was basically a neutral country. Now, how was it formed, and who were the people behind it? So the League of Nations, it was a product of a combination of ideas. So we are saying it was started by Cecil, Lord Robert Cecil of Britain, and Leon Bourgeois of France, and Jean Smuts of South Africa. So these three gentlemen, they discussed of forming an international body. So it was intended for resolving the war, resolving differences without even getting into the war. So that's why they formed it. They looked at the casualties, or they looked at the problems that were there on the First World War. So they thought of forming an international body that could solve the problems without resolving into war. So Britain had the idea of just having a simple and narrow organization only to meet on emergencies only. But France wanted it to be a very strong organization with its military, while the USA wanted it to be wide and meet regularly on issues affecting them all. So those were the feelings or the thinking of those people of who were there, the leaders. So they had different views of that international body. So they adopted the idea of a wider organization. So which means it was the idea of USA to have a wider organization that could meet regularly. So they drew up what was called the covenant. A covenant, like the biblical word, covenant is an agreement or the rules governing the organization. So some of them were that every member he agreed not to start the war and stand by the principles of world peace according to the League. And also they also agreed to solve future disputes by arbitration. Arbitration means discussion. By discussing, both sides should come to the round table and discuss, not going into the war. And also countries agreed not to be forced, but they were encouraged to cooperate with all other nations of the world. And again, one of the covenant was also countries, they agreed to improve people's living standards. So those were some of the issues that were there in the covenant. This League of nations. It was aimed at maintaining world peace by avoiding wars. So how could they do that? They could do that, they could avoid the wars through collective security to restrain the country that was an aggressor, that provoked other countries. So to have a collective security, countries coming together and restraining the aggressor or the country that provokes other nations. And also by putting economic sanctions on the aggressor, no aid, no trade, and also by putting military sanctions on the aggressor, that is using peace keeping troops, just as it is with we hear Malawian soldiers, they go to DRC for peacekeeping. That is they are following the United Nations. That is one of the aims of the United Nations currently is to maintain world peace, adopted from the same League of Nations, because currently we don't have the League of Nations. So first there was the League of Nations, and later it was changed to the United Nations, of which we are going to learn about it very soon. Very soon we'll be looking at the United Nations. So here the United Nations has also adopted the things that were there only the League of Nations. So those were the ways of avoiding future wars by maintaining peace. And also the other aim was to solve social and economic problems. How could they do that? They could do that by promoting social and economic development worldwide. So they had, or the League had, basically two aims. So there were those two aims that governed the League of Nations. On the membership of the League, there were two kinds. There were two kinds of membership. So one kind was the original membership. So the original members, they were the ones who signed the peace treaty, who were there at the Versailles Treaty. Those were the original members. And among these, we had France, Britain, Japan, and Italy. Japan and Italy. So these four were the original members of the League. And part B, it was the non-original members. So these ones, they became members after the treaty had been signed. So all those that joined later after the League, the treaty was signed. We mean the Versailles Treaty here. After that treaty was signed, those members who joined this grouping were non-original members. Now, so they were given chance, although maybe during that time at the Versailles Treaty they were not there, but there was that provision to say we are forming a worldwide body. Therefore, all the members, even those who were not present at the Versailles Treaty, they were given chance to join. So amongst other big countries that joined later, we have Germany here, and also we have Russia. Russia also joined in 1934, while Germany joined in 1926. So it had 42 members at first, and by the 1930s, the membership grew up to 59. So there are 59 members in the early 30s. How was this League of Nations organized? How was it organized? We are looking at the organs now, the parts. How was it structured? So there was what was called the assembly. The assembly was one of the organs. So this one, it was the superior organ of the league. And each member state had one vote, because we are talking of the assembly. So the assembly, it means it is the gathering of people where they discuss different issues. So the League of Nations had that gathering. So in that gathering, you know, when there are issues, maybe they want to pass a decisions or a decision. Usually, some crucial decisions they go up to voting. So that's why we are saying that each member state had one vote. So each member state had one vote. So it was like a parliament of the league, and it was meeting once a year, just as it is with the United Nations. We hear the president going to the United Nations. He just went there last month, like September. So we see to it that it was the parliament where leaders, they meet there, they present different issues pertaining to how their countries are faring. Now, this assembly, it had the following functions. So, number one, it admitted new members into the league. And also, it discussed matters presented by the council. So, discussed matters presented by the council. The council was another organ. We are going to look at it shortly. And again, elected temporary members to the council. So the council that we are going to look at we are going to look at it how it was structured. So the assembly was there to elect new or temporary members who were to join the council itself. So they also prepared the budget for the league. So the assembly had those functions. Now, let's look at the council. We just mentioned the council shortly. So this organ consisted of four permanent members. It had 4 permanent members. And who were these members? There was Britain, there was France, there was Italy, and Japan. So these were the 4 members of the 4 permanent members. And these members, what made them so peculiar to others? So they had the right to veto. They had the right to veto. What is it? It means to block a decision. To block a decision. That is, after the assembly has passed, agreed on something, to say, all right, as a world body, we are agreeing maybe to shun this country from aid, from trade, then any of those members of the council, either Britain, France, Italy, and Japan, on how it looked on that issue, then it had the right to block that decision, to say no, much as the assembly has said that we should do this this activity, but we are not doing it. So every member of the permanent council, a member who was permanent in the council, had the right to block a decision. So there were 3 members. There were also other members. Sorry for that. There were other members who were temporarily voted there, so they could join the league or the council only for 3 years. They were there for 3 years. So the aim of the council was to prevent disputes before they got out of hand. So the major aim of the council, that's why in the United Nations it is also called the Security Council. The Security Council. So it looks at disputes between countries, and it tries to venture into that dispute before it gets out of hand. So that's it. For example, we talk of Malawi. If Malawi is in dispute with Zambia or Tanzania, you find that the international bodies, they come in quickly. For example, we had the issue of the Lake Malawi, whereby Tanzania claims part of the lake, and we say no, the whole of the lake is ours. So we have seen SADC coming in, trying to negotiate on that issue. So it is an issue that is ongoing, trying to resolve that dispute. So that's how the Security Council of the United Nations works. So it is there to prevent disputes. So if it fails, or if it fails to take a measure to establish peace, then it could take 3 measures. What were these? So it could take the 3 measures. So number 1 was the diplomatic sanctions, economic sanctions, as well as military sanctions. So on diplomatic sanctions, they could inflict, sanctions were inflicted on the aggressor. That is, that aggressor was sometimes sidelined. So basically here, what he's trying to say, the negotiations were the first thing. After the negotiations, they failed, then moral sanctions, sidelining the aggressor, the one that has proved to say this one doesn't want to cooperate. Economic sanctions, it means no trade, no trade, no aid as well to the aggressor by other member states. So member states could agree to say, no, we are not trading anything with this country. For example, we talk of North Korea. It has got those sanctions because of those nuclear weapons. So the United Nations imposed those sanctions: no trade with North Korea, no aid to North Korea. And the international body is still trying to negotiate with North Korea to avoid the manufacture of those nuclear weapons. And military sanctions, this time now, it means now they could, member states, they could come together and have a collective security and impose them on the Now we have the other one, the Secretariat. The Secretariat, it was based on in Geneva, that is Switzerland. That is, remember, where this League of Nations was formed. And the first Secretary General was Sir Eric Drummond of Britain. So this one, the Secretariat, it was like the center nave of the League, which basically conducted administrative activities. So some of the functions, it was to carry out the civil service. That is to look after who are the workers of the League, or who are, what are we supposed to do, or to keep the records as well of the progress of the meetings also, and prepare reports of different organizations or organs of the League, and make payments as well to the civil service that was there, the people that were working with the Secretariat. There was also the Permanent Court of International Justice. So this one, it was set up in 1922. So its headquarters was at The Hague. Hague is in Holland. So it had, the Permanent Court of Justice had 15 judges. And these 15 judges, they were taken from different countries. They were from different countries. Why? To avoid favoritism, no favor. And it was dealing with disputes. How? If it was only asked to do so. And it was not insisting countries to abide by its opinion. So that's how it was working. It was like an independent court, whereby it was only acting on the issues that have been brought on it. For example, even today, the United Nations, the International Court, also does the same. It deals with issues that are brought to it, and it cannot interfere on issues that are happening in the countries. Unless those issues are brought to it, then it acts and passes the decisions. Now, some of its functions the functions of the Permanent Court of Justice, International Justice, was to offer legal advice to the Assembly and the Council. The Assembly and the Council, they could get the legal advice from those 15 judges or the International Court of Justice. And again, it also made laws. It made laws relating to international matters. So that was the Court of Justice. Then there was the International Labour Organization. International Labour Organization. So its objective was to ensure international agreement on matters of wages, matters of hours of work, and general improvement of work conditions. Internationally, there was to be a standard to say this category of work, it has to have these conditions of work. So it was there to do that, and it was also there to advise on the rights of workers to join the trade union. The trade union is like the coming together of workers so that their voice is heard as one. Because sometimes if you are in a factory, like in a cotton factory, some people are in a rubber factory, in a sugar factory, there are bad conditions sometimes there. So if those people, they don't come together to form a union, their voice is not going to be heard by the employers. So the aim was to make those workers to have the right to form a trade union so that at least their voices must be heard by the employers. And this one, the International Labor Organization, it was meeting once a year. It was also meeting the ILO. Now, there were also commissions and committees. So they were set apart to deal with specific problems. So the committees were like there to deal with specific problems that could arise. So they were not there to do everything at every time. So some of the issues that were there were issues like issues of labor, refugees, issues of health, slavery, colonization, and disarmament. So these were some of the issues that needed attention of the world. So the League of Nations thought it wise to form these commissions, special commissions to deal with these specific issues. So let's look at some of these commissions. So there was the Mandates Commission. So the Mandates Commission, it was there to oversee former colonies of the defeated powers. So they were taken on hold until they were ready for independence. So we talk of colonies of countries like Germany. Germany had its own colonies. For example, Tanzania here was under Germany. So after Germany was defeated, she had no power to have any colony anywhere. Therefore, there was that Mandates Commission that was looked after that, or to look after those. So mandate powers such as Britain and France, those were the mandate powers. See, so the question asked to say what were the mandate powers? Britain and France, they acted on the interest of the people of those colonies. So they were the ones who took over the control or the charge of those mandates. So mandates were placed into three classes. So there are three classes of mandates colonies. So they were based on development of the people, and again geographical location, and also economic situation of the people. So those were the categories how they were put. Now let's look at those mandates, because we have said that they were in 3 categories. So there was a mandate. A mandate is not like A, B, C, no, but it is a mandate. So those A mandates, their nature was like the standard of development was enough. It was enough for independence. So these A mandates were ready for independence. And the B mandates, these ones, they were like the countries in Africa which were not ready. They were not ready for independence. C mandates, they were very small colonies, and they were very small in size, and they were a remote population in very far from the centers of civilization. Very small colonies. So these ones, they were the sea mandates, like mostly the islands in the oceans. So those ones, they were very small and very far from these main centers of civilization. So they were categorized like that. Then we're still looking at the commissions and committee. We have looked at number one, we've said that there was the mandates commission. So number 2 here, we are looking at the health commission, which was there to look at the issues of sanitation and health. So it was mainly to look at the dangerous diseases, see, the pandemics. See, those dangerous diseases, it was to be looked after by the Health Commission. And there was the Refugee Commission. This one, it was after repatriating refugees. We are talking of issues that happened after the war. So during the war, you know what happens during the war. Some people, they run away to other countries, crossing the borders. Now, there were so many people who left their original countries, their original homes. Now, it was a problem now, which the League of Nations saw to it that it is supposed to be solved. So it was repatriating. To repatriate is to bring them back. Those refugees were brought back to their original countries. And there was also the Slavery Committee. So this one, the Slavery Commission, it was working out on issues of completely abolishing slave trade. You know, by 1870s, 1880s, slave trade was closed. Most of the markets were closed. But even in the early 90s, it was happening. Slave trade was happening, but it was happening in small amounts. So this slavery commission, it was there to abolish, to completely end slavery, even in its smallest form. No need for slavery to exist. So the League of Nations commissioned the Slavery Committee for that. Then there was the Drug Commission. The Drug Commission, it dealt with selling and buying of illegal drugs between countries. This is a problem even up to now. Some people are getting very rich because of smuggling the drugs. So by that time, again, by the 1920s, it was also a problem. It was a big problem. Some countries were buying and others were selling in large quantities the illegal drugs, the mandrax, the cocaine, those things. Up to now, they're happening, but in small quantities, but still it is happening. So those things are illegal. So the League of Nations thought it wise to set a commission to control such things, such countries that were buying those illegal drugs in large quantities. And there was also the Minority Commission. This Minority Commission ensured that people in countries were not treated badly based on their religion or ethnic background. So it was the issue. I remember last time when we were talking of the results of the Versailles Treaty, we said that there was, or when we are trying to assess, we saw to it that the one of the weaknesses was that people were given the countries not of their choice because of the demarcations. As such, in those countries in which they were demarcated to, they became the minority, and it became a problem. So the League of Nations saw to it that the problem of minority groups has to be looked after. So this minority commission, it was to ensure that people in a country that were those who were not many, the minority, not the majority, they are not treated badly. So bad treatment of those people who were few, no. Or some people are treated badly because of their religion or ethnic background. That one, it was checked by the minority committee. So that's about the commissions.
Simutaya nthawi yanu kufunafuna maphunziro muzakhala wotumidwa moyo wanu wonse. Ngati simuphunzira anthu azingokutumani ajala kalime ajala kuchwe manyazi ajala katende yanti ndipo anthu ophunzira wandu wotumanso kwambiri. Ndiye ngati simuphunzira skulu akuyikirani apa mukhala otumidwa.